Welcome. Thanks for coming and joining me today. We're going to go over the South Interlake Regional Library, Ready for Kindergarten Kit number 5. This is your final kit, and we're very excited to share this kit with you. There are some really great treasures in it. Let's have a look. Welcome to kit number 5 with the Ready for Kindergarten Early Learning Program with your library. So the South Interlake Regional Library is very excited to share this final kit with you. We have some amazing things that are going to go home with you that we're really excited about. So this particular kit is our story kit, and so it has a whole bunch of different levels that we're going to talk about, and it's going to focus mainly on the narrative skills. So we've done our print awareness, our letter knowledge, our phonological awareness, the vocabulary, your print motivation, and now we're really going to work on our narrative skills. So, being able to understand and tell stories and describe things, ask questions, ask your children to tell you stories and tell you about the book you've just read together, and you're going to help your child tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So we've put together a kit that's going to help you do that. So the first thing we're going to go over is story stones. So the story stones is something that we here at the library often use in all of our programs. It's such an effective way to retell a story and making sure your children are engaged. So it's one of the most, like I said, well-known resources for encouraging children to become independent storytellers. They feel so natural and part of humanity's storytelling past. So, but what do you do with them when you get them? So we're going to tell you. This month you're going to receive a kit. It's going to be in a bag and it's going to contain some stones. In the stones are going to be blank. They're going to come in a bag like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to include some adventure art. You are going to cut out the items that you want and you're going to create story stones. What story stones are is it's probably the simplest way of getting the children or your children started using story to their ability. So it's very well known, and it's so great and engaging, especially when it's coupled with adult-led context. So the idea is simply to have a selection of story stones and you put them in a bag. Then you get your child to take one of the stones out of the bag and you start a story. So then the next person or the same child takes the next stone out and you continue. So the big thing here to foster positive storytelling and getting them to learn how to do this is to have the adult help. So you're gonna need to pretty much tell the whole story to start, and you hope, however, that when you get going and you get into it and your children will get into it, that they'll become better at making up the stories, or at least parts of the stories themselves. So there's so many story stones that you can use. We've given you ones that are on the flat side that, that'll enable you to put pictures on them so you can glue them on. You can paint. Now, these aren't mine. These were gifts to the library we have a stone fairy, and I'm collecting them all, and all the staff love them. But another way you can do that is you can paint on them and then you can cover them. The lighter the stones, the better, because it really helps to bring out the color of the images. This one is used with Sharpies, and you can paint and then outline it and do that as an activity with your child. So the main thing that we want you to look for when you're starting is we've given you the bag, we've given you the blank stones within, and we've given you some clip art. So we want you to look for characters. So you want to have a stone that has characters in it, and you want some good and maybe some not so good characters. So things like a cat or a rabbit or a princess or friends. And for maybe the naughty characters, you think of things like a wizard or a witch, a dragon, maybe a sneaky snake. Just ideas like that. So then you're going to want to have a setting. So think magical, think realistic, you know, like how about a house or a carnival or a spooky cave or maybe a castle or, you know, a forest or a glen of flowers, anything like that. Then you're gonna wanna have a problem. So, you know, these are basically bad things that can happen in a story. So think of things such as a poisoned apple or, we'll use a snake, a naughty snake. You could do a storm, you could do a snowstorm. Also, you know, it could be a thing like if your children are into a certain theme and you wanted to go that way, you could do like zombies or ghosts. In your clip art, we put some inclement weather. So here's a tornado or lightning, or, you know, there could be a bumblebee. So basically anything. You know, the story big method that I usually go for is random stories. So they just pick out a mixture of the 4 types of stones and you go with that. So make up a whole bunch and then let them unwind the stories with multiple settings and cliffhangers and story twists. So one of the things I would suggest that, you know, I can tell you here, what we do, and again, we usually do this with a group of children, is we create a boundary. So we've just taken some rope and we've made a circle, we've, you know, taped it together, and we try to get the kids to maintain the story within the parameter of the circle. So I would start out with no stories in here, and I would start with, one day, Bat Boy came into the forest and he lost his way. So he needed to use his flashlight to go through. And when the light turned on, the flowers appeared with all their magical colors. And all of a sudden, a beautiful horse came out of the glen. But then, a sneaky snake showed up. So you can just go on from there. The sneaky snake showed up, and there was a snowstorm, and it just goes on and on and on, and it's endless. So what we want you to do is create your stones. We've given you the tools to do so. It's very easy. And the best thing about the story stones is you can use them different ways. So, you know, you could use them for creative play. You could take the story stones, have them available, and read them along with stories and try to get the children to pinpoint, okay, so what would be the setting? Is it in a forest or is it in a dump truck? You know, you can, if the kids are part of making it, they really become something that, somewhat of an ownership. So they may want to use the characters in a dollhouse or playtime with their cars, maybe in conjunction with their building blocks. Or a beautiful thing about these is they're portable. Take them along with you. Take them, you know, and take them to a restaurant. Take them to a friend's house if you're going for a visit. How about holiday story stones for a different version? Do a Christmas one, do an Easter one. They're such a multifaceted tool that you can just use forever and always and use in so many different ways. One of the other things I'll just throw in there that you can use story stones for is sorting. Sort them out. You know, if you've got 14 different story stone bags that you've put together, pile them all up and get the kids to sort. Put all the people together, put all the animals together, put all the settings together, the holiday stones together. You know, sorting and organizing activities just to help develop those cognitive skills. The kids, they love story stones. They love to line them up. They love to make stories. It just goes endless. There's no right or wrong way to play with these stones. They're open-ended and they foster creativity and critical thinking. So this is our gift to you to start your journey with the story stones. Okay, so you've taken part in literacy experiences at home over the last few months by engaging in activities that are important to your child and their early literacy development. So engaging in activities such as joint reading and drawing and singing and story time, reciting, game playing, rhyming, everything you've been doing with your kids over the last 4 months. you're helping your child develop their reading ability, their comprehension, and their language skills, as well as building your child's interest in reading and their attitude towards reading and their focus while reading. And those are so important. So what we're going to focus on in our final session is story retelling, which is an effective way to improve children's reading comprehension. And that will give them the gift of, understanding and taking that comprehension and just going through their school years and further with just such a great understanding and you're giving them the gift of helping them develop their reading skills, and the practice that you're going to do over the next while is extremely helpful. So studies on story recall have found that extending use of the technique of a story retelling lead, and I'll tell you about this in a second, it leads to a large improvement in story comprehension, making like interpretations and understanding of the story structure. And rather than having a child answer a specific question about a story detail, story retelling requires a child to focus on the bigger picture. So the story retelling allows you to see how well your child understands the story as a whole. So the goal of what we're going to go through for this month is focusing and to encourage your kids to think critically about a story and to improve their comprehension and vocabulary by having them tell their thoughts. So as children become more comfortable with retelling, their stories, their language and listening skills, true story, will improve. So the big word here is retelling. It's an important component of discriminating comprehension in the beginning of readers. Making it hands-on is so important. And here's how we're gonna do it. This is called a story rope. So this is going to engage your child, and it's going to incorporate all those senses we talked about and really cement that learning for them. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to share with you that the staff here made these story ropes for every one of your children. And like I said, we use these in our programming, and they are essential, and we just are so happy to be able to be in a position to share this tool with you that you can keep and use for years to come. So when you read aloud to your child, you're going to always have your story rope with you now. And you want to talk about your book. So you choose your book, and there's a little rhyme we came up with. When I read a story, it has more than one part. The title, illustrator, and author are just the places to start. The setting, characters, and adventures are parts of the story too. Don't forget to wrap it up so I can retell it to you. So when you start your reading with your child, go over that rhyme. The title, illustrator, and author are just the places to start. The setting, characters, and adventures are parts of the story too. Don't forget to wrap it up so I can retell the story to you. So let's go over this. So when you're reading a book, just like I read along with you, you start with the cover. You talk about the book, you look at the pictures, you talk about what you think the story's going to be about, ask your child what they know about the things that they see on the cover and what they're interested in learning about this book. So one of the big things on the front of a book is the title. So always go over what the title is. Very important. So that's on the front of the book. Take the time, read the back or the inside of the cover or the author's page if there is one. Get your child excited about the book and get her brain or his brain thinking about the story or the topic before you even read one word. So we're going over the title. You always want to acknowledge that somebody took the time to write the book and somebody took the time to draw the pictures in the book when we're talking about picture books. So always acknowledge the author and the illustrator. And for me, I always acknowledge the publisher because we can't have books without our publishers. So that's something important because as they go through school, anything that they annotate with any of their schoolwork or citable sources or anything like that, they're going to need to know the terms illustrator, author, and publisher because that will always go and coincide with all their work. So from there, maybe do a picture walk, peruse the book to get a feel for what's inside.
Use phrasing. So phrasing is how we speak or read to make a point. So you can hear the inflection when I talk to you in these videos. Slow down when the words are hard or when they're scary. Add a moody influence to the story, or speed up when it's a crazy scene, or the characters. So scene and characters are silly. When you're reading to your child, they are not going to be judgmental. Use those silly facial expressions and hand gestures and get really into the story. So you're going to want to pick the scene or the setting. Where is the book taking place? Try to get your child to figure out. So is it in a library? Is it in a bedroom? Is it in a supermarket? Is it in a bookstore? Is it in a castle? Get them to figure that out, and then figure out who the characters are. Explain, who do you think the book is about? So you figured out it's about a boy. Who's the boy's best friend? Could be a girl. Get them to name it. So those are some very important key points that you're going to want to go. So now you're into the book. You've figured out, the name, the illustrator, the author, the publisher, the setting where it's taking place, the main characters. Now, what started the story off? What is the main thing? Did somebody get lost? Did somebody find something? Did somebody lose something? What's the exciting thing that's taking part? What's the dramatic part of the story that's kicking off the story? And then while you're reading, and do this aloud. Think aloud. When you read to yourself, you're making silent predictions and asking your own self questions without even knowing it. So model this out loud for your child. Help them see what's going on inside their reading brain. Say things like, I wonder why the boy did that. What did he do? Do you think he'll find his dog? Or, I'm scared. I hope this turns out okay for the girl. So as much as you can, try to model what's happening in your brain as you read. So, when you're done your story and you're going over the book, try to get your child to retell. So there we are, retelling. What started the story after you figure out the setting and the characters? What started it? And what are 3 big things that happened? So, what did that boy do? The boy lost his dog, and the girl was really scared, and I hope it turns out for the girl. Did it turn out? What happened to the girl? So you're making the connections, okay? So that, you're making connections to things that happen, maybe to real life, maybe to other books. This book reminds me of the time we went camping, or do you remember? So those kind of things, you want to think out loud during it. And then at the end, how did it end? How did you tie the story together? How did you tie the setting, the characters, and the story parts together? What was the ending? How did it happen? Did the boy find his dog? Was the girl okay? So when you're using your story rope, start with the rhyme, and you can go through this, and this will actively get your child on the right path. Feel free to talk about what you like and what you don't like about the story. I wish the ending would have been different. I'm sad about the cat and the dog. And what would you change if you rewrote the story? Just really engage your child. And finally, review the events. So review from the previous pages. This is a great way to check and see if your child is retaining the information or has retained it. It's a good practice for learning of a sequence of events. And that's why we have this retelling story rope. It really does help with recalling details in a story and really summarizing it so you can see if their comprehension is right there with you. And all of these are comprehension skills that are important for your child to learn. And they're learning them easily and seamlessly by talking about these stories and with these prompts. So don't be afraid to use them. Use them to make up stories just like you do with your story stone. Have fun when reading aloud and use the story rope as a tool in your journey to fostering your child's reading success. This is a huge part in the literacy experience that you're doing at home with your children. You're engaging them and you're focusing on creative ways to improve your child's reading comprehension. So that's our big gift to you at the end. We're going to include a bookmark, of course, because bookmarks are always fun. We are going to send you home with a challenge. So this can be used there are 100 books on here. So every time your child reads a book, get them to color it in and see. Read to 100 challenge. Maybe at the end they could get a reward. That's up to mom and dad, or the reward of reading 100 books is big enough. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the kindergarten readiness checklist. This is just a checklist. It's just something to think about. It's certainly not, set in stone. If your child does all of them and you're like, oh, that was way too easy, well, congratulations, that's awesome. And if your child doesn't get all of these yet, that's okay too. Congratulations, your child's unique and is well on their way to learning. This is just kind of a point of reference, and it's just some of the things that we went over, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to go over and see, hey, maybe this next week, let's work on our A's, but we know all the rest of them, or let's review, let's go over it if you know it already. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for the Ready for Kindergarten Early Literacy Program. We're very happy that you joined us. We hope you had an amazing time and you enjoyed your scissor, pencil, shape, numbers, and story skills. And don't forget, if you need more books, we're only a phone call away. See you soon.